You already knew I'd pick him if he ever came back, she said at her parents' dinner table. I didn't argue, just stood up, thanked them for the meal, and left. Changed the locks that night. She came home still smirking until she saw her stuff on the porch. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this one's a ride. My buddy keeps telling me I need to post this somewhere because apparently my life turned into a cautionary tale about ignoring red flags. So here we are. I'm 32, work as an operations coordinator for a manufacturing company here in Ohio. Nothing glamorous, but it pays well, and I actually like my job. Been there 6 years, got promoted twice, have my own office with a window that looks out at the parking lot. Not exactly corner office material, but it's mine. Got a desk with actual drawers, a plant my mom gave me that somehow hasn't died yet, and a coffee maker that my coworkers have unofficially designated as communal property. The job itself is pretty straightforward. I coordinate production schedules, manage inventory systems, make sure supplies get where they need to go when they need to be there. Nothing that's going to change the world. But there's something satisfying about making all the pieces fit together. Like a giant puzzle that resets every week. The house was the big accomplishment, though. 3 years ago, I bought this place with white panels and blue shutters, small front porch, decent yard with a big oak tree that drops leaves everywhere in fall. Put down the entire down payment myself from savings I'd been building since my first real job out of college. Lived like a monk for 5 years. No fancy vacations. Drove a used truck I paid cash for. Brought lunch to work instead of eating out. Her parents actually insisted the house be in my name only when we were buying it. Her dad said something about protecting assets, just in case things didn't work out. I thought it was paranoid at the time. Thought they were being overly cautious. Thought maybe they didn't trust their own daughter, which seemed harsh. Turned out to be the smartest advice anyone ever gave me. I built that porch myself last summer. Took me 3 weekends and cost me a smashed thumb that turned purple for 2 weeks. But every time I sat out there with my coffee in the morning watching the neighborhood wake up, I felt like I'd actually accomplished something real. The house wasn't huge, but it was mine. I'd painted every room myself, installed new light fixtures because the old ones looked like they came from the 70s, even redid the bathroom tile because the previous owners had some questionable taste in pink ceramic that made the whole room look like a Pepto-Bismol commercial. Her name was Claire. We'd been married 3 years, together 5 total. Met her at a friend's cookout back when life was simpler, and I still believed people meant what they said. She was an accountant at some firm downtown, had this smile that could light up a room, wore these sundresses in summer that always got my attention. She seemed genuinely impressed that I owned my own place and had my life together, which after dating some women who thought stability was boring, felt refreshing. Claire and I had the kind of relationship that looked perfect from the outside. We'd host dinner parties where she'd make elaborate appetizers from Pinterest, and I'd grill stuff on the back deck. Take weekend trips to state parks and little towns with antique shops she loved browsing through. Post pictures that got all the likes and comments about how cute we were together. Her friends would tell her how lucky she was to find such a stable guy. My buddies would give me that knowing nod, like I'd won some kind of lottery. Her parents adored me from day one. Her dad Richard and I would talk sports for hours, while her mom Linda insisted on sending me home with containers of leftovers, even though I told her every time she didn't have to. For a while, I believed it too. Believed we had something special. Something that would last. But here's the thing about ignoring red flags. They don't go away just because you pretend they're not there. They just pile up until one day you're drowning in them, and wondering how you missed the warning signs that were everywhere. The fork stopped halfway to my mouth when she said it. We were sitting at her parents' dining table. Tuesday night dinner, something we'd done 100 times before. Their house was this nice 2-story colonial in a quiet subdivision, built in the 80s but well-maintained. Richard had retired from engineering a few years back and spent most of his time golfing and complaining about his golf buddies. Linda kept the house running like a military operation and was always cooking something. She just brought out dessert. Apple pie, homemade from scratch, the good stuff with the lattice crust she spent an hour weaving. Richard was in the middle of some story about his golf game, complaining about his buddy Frank who cheats on his handicap and pretends he doesn't. I was only half listening, mostly focused on finishing my pot roast because Linda's pot roast was genuinely amazing. Then Claire opens her mouth and everything changes. You already knew I'd choose him if he ever asked me. Not quiet, not whispered, not muttered under her breath like something that slipped out accidentally. Just said it like she was commenting on the weather or mentioning she needed to pick up dry cleaning tomorrow. Casual, almost bored, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, and she couldn't believe she had to spell it out. Her mom's hand froze on the pie server. Her dad stopped mid-sentence, mouth still open, whatever complaint about Frank dying on his lips. I could hear the clock ticking on their wall, this old grandfather clock they'd gotten as a wedding gift 40 years ago. Tick, tick, tick. The sound seemed abnormally loud in the silence. Claire was smiling, not apologetic, not embarrassed, not even nervous about what she'd just dropped on everyone like a bomb at a dinner party. Just this small, satisfied smile like she'd been waiting to say this for a while and was pleased with how it landed. Like she'd been rehearsing this moment and was proud of her delivery. I looked at her for maybe 3 seconds. Long enough to understand this wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't her being careless or trying to make some weird joke that fell flat. This was intentional, calculated. She wanted me to hear this. She wanted her parents to hear this. She wanted everyone at that table to know exactly where I stood in her life. Nowhere. That's where I stood. Second place to some guy she apparently never got over. I set my fork down carefully, picked up my napkin from my lap, wiped my mouth like I was at some business lunch instead of watching my marriage implode in front of my in-laws. Richard opened his mouth like he was going to say something, closed it, opened it again. The man looked like a fish gasping for air, trying to process what his daughter had just announced. Linda just stood there, frozen, pie server still in her hand, face gone completely pale under the warm dining room lights. Wait. Claire's smile flickered for the first time. Where are you going? I didn't answer, just pushed my chair back from the table, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor. Way too loud in that silence. I could feel all 3 of them watching me as I walked toward the front door, grabbed my jacket from the coat rack where I'd hung it hundreds of times before. Are you seriously leaving? Her voice followed me across the room, sharp now, confused, irritated, like I'd missed my cue in whatever scene she was directing, like I was supposed to get upset and argue and give her the drama she was apparently looking for. I opened the front door. November air hit me cold and clean, a relief after the suffocating tension of that dining room. It wasn't a joke, I said, without turning around. And then I left. The drive home took 20 minutes. I didn't speed through red lights or weave through traffic like a maniac. Didn't slam my hands on the steering wheel or scream into the void like they do in movies. Just drove normal, both hands at 10 and 2, following traffic laws like a responsible citizen. Radio off, just the sound of the engine and the tires on pavement. But my brain was working differently now. Clearer. Like someone had finally turned on a light in a room I'd been stumbling around in for months. And suddenly I could see all the furniture I'd been tripping over. The late nights at the office that started about 6 months ago. Always some project that needed her attention. Always some deadline that couldn't wait. I'd believed her because why wouldn't I? She was ambitious about her career. That's one of the things I'd admired about her. The phone always turned face down on the table, something she'd started doing around the same time. Said it was because she didn't want work notifications interrupting our dinner. Made sense at the time. Sounds suspicious now looking back. The way she'd started dressing up more for work. New clothes I didn't remember her buying. Heels that were fancier than her usual sensible work shoes. But then she'd come home looking different somehow. Tired but satisfied. Hair slightly different than when she left. Like she'd redone it during the day. New perfume I didn't recognize mixing with something else I couldn't place. I noticed all of it. Of course I noticed. But I'd chosen to trust her. Chosen to believe her explanations about big projects and demanding clients and networking events that ran long. Chosen to tell myself I was being paranoid. That she loved me. That we had a good thing going. I'd made that choice every single day. And every single day I'd been a fool. That choice ended tonight. I parked in our driveway. Our house, the one I'd bought with my money, my savings, my down payment, white panels looking gray in the darkness, blue shutters barely visible. That porch I'd built with my own hands, the one where we'd sat on summer evenings watching fireflies. Inside, everything looked exactly the same as when I'd left for dinner. Her shoes by the door, those black flats she kicked off the second she got home, her jacket on the coat rack, photos of us on the wall from vacations and holidays, and moments that apparently meant nothing. Our wedding photo in the living room, both of us smiling like we meant it. Maybe I did. Maybe she never had. I walked past all of it like a ghost in my own home. Didn't stop to look at any of it. Didn't let myself get sentimental. Garage first. Found the cardboard boxes I'd saved from our last move. The ones Claire kept telling me to throw away because they were cluttering up space and we'd never need them. But I never threw them out because you never know when boxes might come in handy. Turns out I was right about that. Carried them upstairs 2 at a time. Strong from years of moving stuff around at work and weekend projects around the house. Her closet came first. I pulled dresses off hangers one by one, folded them neat and clean like I was packing for a trip. Not angry. Not throwing things around or ripping stuff off shelves in some dramatic rage. Just systematic, methodical. Like I was completing a task at work, checking items off a list, making sure everything got done right. Shoes next. All those heels she'd bought over the years, the ones that cost more than my monthly grocery bill, the boots she wore twice, then forgot about in the back of the closet, sneakers that still had tags on them because she'd bought them on sale and never gotten around to wearing them. Into the box. All of them. Jewelry from her dresser. I was careful here. Nothing I'd given her went in the boxes because I wanted those pieces back. The engagement ring. The necklace I'd bought her for our first anniversary. Those stayed out. But everything else, all the stuff she'd accumulated over the years, the pieces her grandmother had left her, the earrings she'd bought herself for promotions and birthdays, and just because. Packed. The fancy perfume her sister gave her for Christmas last year. The one she never wore because she said it was too strong. Into a box with the rest of the bathroom stuff. Speaking of the bathroom, makeup organized in those clear acrylic containers she loved. Must have been 100 different products. Foundations, concealers, powders, things I couldn't even identify or name. Hair products that took up 2/3 of the cabinet space under the sink. Styling tools that cost as much as power tools. That purple toothbrush she'd insisted on buying because it matched the bathroom towel she'd also insisted on. All of it. Every single thing that was clearly hers and hers alone. I worked for maybe an hour, maybe two. Lost track of time completely. Got into a rhythm of identify, fold, pack, move on. Identify, fold, pack, move on. The repetitive motion was almost meditative. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Text from Claire. Where did you go? I ignored it. Kept packing. Another buzz a few minutes later. This is ridiculous. Come back so we can talk. Ignored that too. Then, we need to talk about this like adults. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand. Kept working. Nightstand stuff next. Those books she'd started but never finished because she always got bored halfway through. The fancy leather journal she'd bought to write in, but only ever filled the first 3 pages before abandoning it. Charger cables that were technically hers. Reading glasses she only used at night. All boxed up. Downstairs to the kitchen. The expensive blender she'd bought because some wellness blogger she followed swore by it. Used it exactly twice, then forgot it existed in the back of the cabinet. Coffee mugs from places we'd visited together. The ones she'd picked out because she liked collecting them. The fancy knife set her parents gave us as a wedding gift. That one stayed because it was technically a gift to both of us. But everything that was clearly her stuff went into boxes. By midnight, I had 8 boxes stacked by the front door. Everything that was definitively Claire's, organized and ready for her to take. I sat on the couch and looked at my phone. 17 missed calls. 12 texts. The last one said, I'm coming home. We're going to talk about this like adults whether you want to or not. I looked at those boxes stacked neat by the front door. Then I stood up, walked to the garage, and found the lockbox where we kept important papers. Inside was the spare key to the house and the business card for the locksmith, who'd helped us out when we first moved in. Called the 24-hour emergency number. Guy answered on the 3rd ring, voice groggy and confused like I'd woken him from a dead sleep, which I definitely had. I need all my locks changed, front door and back. Tonight, I'll pay double your normal rate. Silence for a second while he processed this. Then, give me your address. I'll be there in 40 minutes. True to his word, he pulled up in a white van at 12:40 in the morning. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, baseball cap and work boots. Didn't ask questions about why someone needed their locks changed in the middle of the night. Just nodded, grabbed his toolbox, and got to work. While he dealt with the front door, I started carrying boxes outside. Set them on the porch I'd built with my own hands. Neat, organized, stacked where they'd be visible from the driveway, the second she pulled up. No way she could miss them. Back door took longer because the lock was older and more stubborn. I made coffee while I waited and watched from the kitchen window as he worked. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart from the outside. The locksmith handed me new keys when he finally finished. 3 shiny copies, fresh cut and unused. Domestic situation? He asked, face neutral. No judgment. Something like that. Seen it before, man. More often than you'd think. He packed up his tools and headed for the door. Good luck with whatever comes next. I paid him in cash, tipped him extra for coming out in the middle of the night. Then I went inside. Locked the door with my new key. The click of that deadbolt sliding home was the most satisfying sound I'd heard in months. Then I sat back down on the couch and waited. Her car pulled up at 1:30 in the morning. I heard the engine first, then the door slammed shut. Not closed. Slammed. Angry already. Footsteps on the walkway. Then she stopped. probably seeing her boxes stacked there on the porch, like some kind of eviction notice. Long silence. I could picture her standing there, trying to process what she was looking at. The key scraped in the lock. Once, twice, 3 times. That satisfying click she was expecting didn't come. What? Her voice muffled through the solid wood door. More scraping. More failed attempts. Then knocking. Hard knocking that rattled the door frame. Open the door. I know you're in there. Your truck's in the driveway. I didn't move from the couch. Didn't respond. Just sat there in the dark living room listening to her realize what had happened. This is insane. Her voice got louder. More desperate. You can't just lock me out of my own house. Except it wasn't her house. My house now. My house always, technically. The deed never had her name on it. That was the whole point of her parents' advice when we bought it. Just in case, Richard had said. Protect yourself. His own daughter, and he'd told me to protect myself from her. Should have realized then that they knew something I didn't. The knocking got louder. Then it stopped. I heard her on the phone outside, voice muffled, probably calling someone for advice or sympathy or both. Then footsteps going down the porch stairs. Car door opening, engine starting. She left. I sat there in the dark for a long time after her taillights disappeared down the street. In the house I'd bought, the house I'd fixed up with my own hands, the house I'd made into what I thought was going to be our home. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could actually breathe. Woke up on the couch around 6 in the morning, neck stiff from sleeping at a weird angle, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Took me about 5 seconds of bleary confusion before everything came flooding back. Then I saw the empty space where her reading chair used to be, the gaps on the bookshelf where her books and decorations had been, the bare hooks by the door where her keys and her jacket used to hang. Not a dream. This was real. This was my life now. Made coffee in the quiet kitchen, strong and black, the kind that tastes like motor oil but gets the job done. While it brewed, I scrolled through my phone. 32 new notifications. Claire, I'm staying at my parents' house. This isn't over. Claire, we need to talk. You're being unreasonable. Claire, you're being completely childish about this. We've been married 3 years. You can't just end things over one comment. Her mom, Linda, please call me sweetheart. I'm sure we can work this out if everyone just calms down. Her dad, Richard, son, let's be reasonable here. Call me when you can. Her best friend, Kennedy. What did you do to her? She's a mess. You need to fix this. That last one actually made me laugh out loud. What did I do? Right. I was the villain here for not being okay with my wife announcing she'd leave me for another man the second he snapped his fingers. I blocked all of them. Claire, her parents, Kennedy, everyone connected to that entire situation. Then I poured my coffee and sat at the kitchen table. 3 years of marriage. 5 years together total. Ended with one sentence at a dinner table. Except it didn't really end there. That was just when I finally stopped pretending. I spent the morning going through old emails and texts on my laptop, not torturing myself, just building a timeline, putting the pieces together now that I knew what picture they formed. 6 months ago, working late again? Don't wait up. Love you. 5 months ago, conference call ran long. Grabbing dinner with the team. Home by 10. 4 months ago, girls' night with Kennedy. Be back late. Don't worry about me. 3 months ago, out of town for a client meeting. Back tomorrow. Miss you. 2 months ago, conference this weekend. Probably won't have much phone signal. Talk when I get back. I believed every single one. Chose to believe them because the alternative meant my whole life was a lie. Chose trust over suspicion because that's what you do when you love someone. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. You can't just throw someone out of their home like trash. Claire's voice, cold and sharp. She'd borrowed someone's phone. I didn't throw you out. You left. I packed your stuff. You changed the locks on our house. My house. My locks. You want to check the deed? Go ahead. We're married. That's not how this works. You can't just make unilateral decisions like this. Seemed to work out fine. Silence on her end. Long enough that I thought maybe she'd hung up. Tell me something, I said into the quiet. Who is he? The guy you'd choose. More silence. Then, doesn't matter now, does it? Her voice was different, harder, like she'd flipped some internal switch into defense mode, where admitting anything would be weakness. You overreacted, she continued. I was just talking, making a point. You're turning one stupid comment into something it's not. You told your parents you'd leave me for another man if he asked. At their dinner table, while your mother was serving pie. That wasn't a slip of the tongue. It came out different than I meant it. No, I don't think it did. I think you meant exactly what you said. I think you've been thinking it for a while, and you finally decided to say it out loud. She started crying then, or at least making crying sounds. The kind that come packaged with explanations and excuses and attempts to rewrite what actually happened into something less damaging. I didn't want to hear any of it. I'm going to file for divorce, I said. You should probably get yourself a lawyer. You can't be serious. After everything we've built, you're going to throw it all away because of one moment? You threw it away, Claire? I'm just acknowledging what you did. I hung up, blocked the unknown number. Then I called my buddy Nathan. Nathan's been my friend since college. Solid guy, works in insurance, married to his high school sweetheart, and has 2 kids under 5 who he shows pictures of constantly. When I told him what happened at dinner, he was quiet for a long time. She actually said that? At her parents' house? Just announced it at the dinner table like it was nothing? Word for word. And you have no idea who this other guy even is? Didn't ask. Don't care. Doesn't change anything at this point. Nathan gave me the name of a divorce attorney his cousin had used. Said she was expensive but worth every penny if things got complicated. You okay, though? He asked before hanging up. Like actually okay? You want me to come over? I thought about it. Honestly, I feel better than I have in months. Like I've been holding my breath underwater this whole time, and I finally came up for air. The lawyer's name was Patricia Hartwell. Sharp woman, mid-50s, corner office full of law books and degrees on the wall. Had that slightly intimidating energy that probably scared opposing counsel into settling early. I liked her immediately. She walked me through everything. What to expect, how the process would work, what I was legally entitled to, and what I wasn't. Since the house was in my name only, and I'd made the down payment from personal savings accumulated before the marriage, it was pretty clearly mine. Same with my truck, which I'd bought and paid for before we even met. Same with most of my retirement accounts. Short marriage, she said, making notes on a legal pad. Both parties employed. No children, no shared business interests. This should be relatively straightforward. She's not going to have much to stand on if she decides to fight it. Her family has money, old money from her grandfather. Don't know if that matters. It matters less than you'd think. What matters is the law and documented facts. The law is on your side here. Felt good hearing that. Felt good having someone competent in my corner who actually knew what they were doing. A week later, her dad, Richard, called me from a number I hadn't blocked yet. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Son. His voice was tired. Old and tired. Can we talk for a minute? I'm not your son anymore, Mr. Mitchell. I know that. I know. Long sigh. But I need you to understand something. Linda and I had no idea she was going to say what she said. We were just as blindsided as you were. Maybe more. I didn't respond. Let him fill the silence. She came back to our house after you left that night, crying and carrying on about how you overreacted, how it was taken out of context, how you were being dramatic and immature. And what did you say? I told her she was lying to herself. His voice got harder, angrier. Not at me, at her. I told her what she did was unforgivable, that she threw away a good man over some fantasy that doesn't even exist. Linda and I are devastated by this whole thing. Part of me wanted to feel bad for them. They'd been good to me for 5 years, treated me like family, fed me and included me and made me feel welcome in their home. But another part remembered Linda's frozen face at that dinner table, the way neither of them said a single word to defend me in the moment. I appreciate you calling, I said. But this is between Claire and me now. Between our lawyers, really. I understand. Richard's voice cracked a little. For what it's worth, you were the best thing that ever happened to her. She just couldn't see it until it was too late. Maybe she saw it fine. Maybe she just didn't care enough to hold on to it. I hung up. Blocked that number too. The divorce took 3 months to finalize. Claire fought it the whole way because of course she did. Tried to claim partial ownership of the house. Tried to get spousal support. Tried every angle her parents' fancy lawyer could think of. Judge wasn't impressed. Short marriage. Both parties gainfully employed. No children. No shared property that wasn't already clearly designated to one person or the other. The house was mine before and during and after. Clean break. She walked away with nothing but what she brought into the marriage, which honestly wasn't much. I kept the house, kept my truck, kept my retirement accounts and my job and my life. Work stayed steady through all of it. My boss Douglas noticed I was going through something. Pulled me aside one day in February after a staff meeting. You doing all right? He asked. You seem different lately. More focused, but also more distant. Getting divorced. He nodded like that explained everything he'd been noticing. Well, you're handling it professionally. Your work hasn't slipped at all. Actually gave me a raise that month. Not out of pity, he emphasized, because I'd earned it. Been there 6 years. Reliable. Good numbers. Consistent performance. I took the raise. Put the extra money into savings like I always did. Started getting my life back in order piece by piece. Painted the bedroom a dark blue to replace that awful beige Claire had insisted on. Looked way better. More peaceful. Actually felt like my space now instead of a compromise nobody was happy with. Fixed the fence in the backyard that had been leaning for 2 years. Built new shelves in the garage for all my tools. Reorganized the kitchen cabinets now that I had all the space. Projects I'd been putting off for years because Claire always had other priorities that took precedence. Her priorities, not ours. Took me a while to realize how one-sided everything had actually been. Nathan and his wife Brooke started having me over for dinner every few weeks. Good people who didn't make me feel like a charity case or demand I talk about my feelings. Just normal dinners, normal conversations. Their kids running around being loud and chaotic in that way small kids are. Normal life. Reminded me what that looked like. Ran into someone at the grocery store in March. Woman named Paige who worked at Claire's old company. We'd met a few times at corporate events over the years, holiday parties and summer picnics. Always seemed nice. Hey, she said, looking nervous. How are you doing these days? Good. Getting better. Thanks for asking. She shifted her weight like she wanted to say something else, but wasn't sure she should. For what it's worth, a lot of us at the office knew something was going on between Claire and that guy. We just didn't think it was our place to say anything. It wasn't really confirmed until after everything blew up. I nodded, letting that sink in. Who was he? The guy? His name was Owen, director in another department. They'd been having an affair for almost a year. Maybe longer. A year. I'd been married to a woman who'd been sleeping with someone else for a third of our entire relationship. Every time she said she loved me during that year. Every kiss. Every night in our bed. All of it while she was seeing someone else. Is he still at the company? No. Paige shook her head. After everything came out, it turned out Claire wasn't the only one. Owen had this pattern of going after women at work, all while married himself. Wife found out eventually, showed up at the office, whole thing became a huge scandal. He got fired. Claire basically had to quit because everyone knew her role in it. I almost felt bad for her. Almost, but not quite. Thanks for telling me, I said. It actually helps knowing the full picture. Paige smiled, relieved. For what it's worth, nobody at the office thought you deserved any of what she did. You always seemed like a decent guy at those events. I got home and put the groceries away. Made dinner. Simple food, nothing fancy. My phone buzzed. Text from a number I didn't recognize. I hope you're happy now. You ruined everything. Claire. Different number again. I stared at it for a minute. Thought about responding with something cutting. Thought about just blocking it immediately. Instead, I just deleted the message without doing either. She wasn't worth the energy anymore. Spring came. Weather got warmer. I started running in the mornings. Nothing intense, just a few miles around the neighborhood to clear my head before work. Felt good to have a routine that was completely mine. No compromises. No checking with anyone else. Nathan invited me to a barbecue at his place in April. His brother was in town for the weekend. Some cousins and old friends. Just a casual gathering, food and conversation, and kids running around the backyard. I went because sitting in my house alone on a Saturday felt pathetic, and I was tired of pathetic. That's where I met Alexis. Nathan's wife, Brooke's cousin. Teacher at the middle school across town. Funny. Smart. Easy to talk to in a way that didn't feel forced or complicated. We spent most of the afternoon chatting about whatever. Books we'd read. Movies we'd seen. Stories about her students who apparently did the most ridiculous things on a daily basis. She had this way of telling stories that made everything seem interesting. She laughed at my jokes. Even the bad ones. Especially the bad ones. Nathan cornered me by the grill later. She's single, he said. Just so you know. In case you were wondering. I'm not really looking for anything right now. He shrugged. Not saying you have to be. Just saying she's a good person. Could do worse than having dinner with someone who makes you smile like that. Alexis and I exchanged numbers before I left. Nothing romantic about it, just friendly. Two people who'd had a nice conversation and figured they might want to continue it sometime. She texted me 3 days later asking if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes before I could overthink it. We met at this small place downtown. Local shop, good coffee, none of that chain store nonsense. Talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. She didn't ask about my divorce, didn't pry into what had happened, or demand I explain my emotional state. Just let me be whoever I was right then, instead of defining me by what I'd been through. You want to do this again? She asked as we were leaving. Yeah, I would. We did dinner the next week. Movie after that. Nothing rushed or pressured, just easy and natural. I didn't tell her I was developing feelings because it was way too soon for declarations like that. But I liked being around her, liked how simple everything felt. No games, no manipulation, no wondering where I stood or what she was really thinking. Just honesty. May came around. Alexis and I had been dating for about a month when karma finally caught up with Claire in a spectacular way. Nathan sent me a screenshot one morning. Owen's wife had gone nuclear. Turns out she'd hired a forensic accountant to go through their finances before filing for divorce. Found out Owen had been funneling company money into a personal account, using it to pay for hotel rooms, dinners, gifts for his various girlfriends, including Claire. Owen got hit with embezzlement charges on top of the divorce. His wife took the house, both cars, full custody of the kids, and 60% of his retirement. Then the company sued him for the stolen funds. Last I heard, he was facing potential jail time and had moved back in with his elderly parents in another state while his lawyers tried to negotiate a plea deal. The guy Claire would have chosen over me was now a broke, unemployed, soon-to-be felon living in his mom's basement. But it got better. Claire had apparently received some of those gifts Owen bought with company money. A designer purse, some jewelry, a weekend trip to a resort. When the forensic accountant traced the purchases, Claire got pulled into the investigation as a material witness. Had to give depositions, turn over text messages, explain exactly what her relationship with Owen entailed and when it started. All of it became part of the court record. Public record. Her new employer found out. The smaller company she'd landed at after quitting her old job. They didn't want the association with an embezzlement case, even if she wasn't the one who stole anything. She got let go within a week of the news breaking. Paige texted me the update. Thought you'd want to know. Claire's been telling everyone she's taking time off to focus on herself. Translation. Unemployed and unhireable because her name shows up in court documents when you search for it. Nathan's take. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The raise at work turned into a promotion by summer. Senior Operations Coordinator. Better title. Better money. My own team to manage. Douglas called me into his office, shook my hand, and told me I'd earned it. Alexis and I made things official around the same time. She met my parents at a Sunday dinner. My mom loved her immediately. My dad pulled me aside afterward and gave me that quiet nod of approval. She's good for you, he said. I can tell. She moved in by fall. Her lease was coming up and she was at my place most nights anyway. Made sense to make it official. We painted the guest room together. Built a raised garden bed in the backyard because she wanted to grow tomatoes. I fixed up the garage so she'd have space to park her car inside during winter. The house felt different with her stuff mixed in with mine. Fuller. Like it was finally becoming what it was supposed to be. Ran into Claire's dad Richard at the hardware store in October. He was standing in the plumbing aisle, looking lost. We made eye contact. Couldn't avoid each other. How are you? He asked. Good. Really good. He nodded slowly. Looked older than I remembered. I'm glad. Linda and I talk about you sometimes. We always said you deserved better. I appreciate that. Claire's struggling, he said. Lost another job. Had to move back home with us. The whole situation with that Owen guy really messed things up for her professionally. I heard. She asks about you sometimes. Wanted me to tell you she's sorry. Really sorry. I didn't have anything to say to that. Richard shifted his weight. For what it's worth, I think she finally understands what she threw away. I hope she figures things out. He nodded again. Take care of yourself. You too, Richard. I loaded my supplies into the truck and drove home. Alexis was in the kitchen making dinner when I walked in. She'd picked up groceries on her way back from school. Good trip? She asked. Got everything I needed. She smiled. Come help me chop vegetables. I'll tell you about the kid who tried to convince me that dogs could do math today. I washed my hands and grabbed a cutting board. Normal evening. Normal life. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.